Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me tonight.
How was the day today, Ofer?
How was my day today?
Yes.
Very diversified, like every day in a VC world, I guess. Met a few entrepreneurs, worked with some of our portfolio companies, did a lot of other stuff with the great team that I have here in Israel. So
It's
quite
always
interesting.
it's always interesting me. How does a day of a VC one of the VC manager looks like? So you wake up like at 11 because I mean your job is really easy, right? So you wake up at 11, you go for lunch for 2 hours, right? And then you go for a gym or so. So how really your day looks like?
Yoga, Pilates.
Pilates, right?
Very important.
Very important. So
I think one of the main differences between being in venture capital and as opposed to being an entrepreneur is a different point of view. When you're an entrepreneur, your entire life is basically focused on one single thing, which is your company. And you're operating in one sector, and 100% of your energy is focused on the success of this one company. And you're like the opposite of being diversified, right?
Right.
And okay. And the interesting thing, or the nice thing about being a venture capitalist, that you have a much broader view. So, in Wild Ventures, and I'm sure we're going to discuss about it later, we invest in several sectors. So I'm meeting entrepreneurs and hearing ideas from different sectors, different technologies. I'm working with entrepreneurs. I'm working with other investors, with service providers, doing marketing, doing research, working with our own portfolio companies. So every day looks a bit different, which is quite nice.
Great. So Wild Ventures actually was founded by Yoav Leitzdorf. And what's your role in the company?
So I'm a partner in Wild Ventures. I joined Yoav back in 2009 as an analyst. I became a partner in 2013 when we raised our second fund. And since then, I'm basically heading and managing our Israeli operations. Yoav is based in Silicon Valley, and I'm here in Tel Aviv.
And how did you find your way into Wild Ventures? I mean, did you have like a very interesting, you founded something and Yoav invested in you or not?
So Yoav haven't invested in me. It's actually a funny story. So I guess that my professional career started in 2000, like many of the entrepreneurs that we invest in. But unlike the entrepreneurs we invest in, I wasn't in the technological side of the unit. I was in the intelligence side of the unit. And after that, I went to university, studied law, had some maybe entrepreneurial aspirations in the back of my mind, but nothing more than that. And when I was in university, I worked in a research company called IVC. Basically, they have a database of all the Israeli startups and the investors. So that was my first experience with the Israeli high-tech industry, and I found it much more exciting than being a lawyer, naturally, I think. And that was the moment that I understood, and I wanted to be in venture capital.
But you have a nice story about how you reached Yoav, right? I mean, IVC actually helped you somehow reach the...
Yeah, so basically I leveraged the fact that I have access to the database with all the venture capital firms in Israel, and I basically just...
that was before GDPR, guys. Okay?
Yeah.
That's also many years ago.
Yeah, and just put together a list of interesting funds that I found really good. And I approached some of them, and it was a great timing for Yoav as well, because he was investing in Israeli startups. He was based in San Francisco, and he wanted someone on the ground to be the eyes and ears of Wild Ventures. And I brought this online research experience, and I was able to do pretty much similar things to what I did in the military service and in IVC, identifying people, identifying opportunities online and offline, researching, and that's where I started.
So you actually started, you were the first employee of Weil in Israel, and actually half a position, I think that was.
Yeah, I started as part-time analyst back in 2007. Right. Went to be full-time analyst like a year and a half later, and then promoted to being an associate 2 years later, and in 2013, when we raised our second fund, I became a partner.
So what is Weil Ventures? And not just, if you can define Weil Ventures for the people around us here and on video, but also what makes you so different from other VCs?
It's a good question. So we're a venture capital firm. We invest in Israeli startups, so that's not unique, I guess. We invest in seed stage very early. That's not unique as well. We're a very focused investor. These days we invest in 3 sectors. First one is cybersecurity, which is our most significant investment field. So I would say between 70 to 80% of what we do, entrepreneurs we meet and companies we invest are within the cybersecurity world. We're also looking at enterprise software and automotive technologies to a lesser extent. So that's one thing that is unique to Weil Ventures, our extreme focus. Okay, we lead relatively large seed rounds, so we invest anywhere between $2 to $4 million in seed, which is quite a lot.
That's numbers, more numbers from the San Francisco, from the Silicon Valley. It's not a seed in Israel.
So yeah, I mean, you can call us a US VC that invests in Israel,
right,
or an Israeli VC with strong presence in the US. It's like basically our entire model is about being a bridge between Israeli innovation and the US market. So we established a presence here in Israel, and we're always broadening our network to entrepreneurial communities that we are interested in. And on the other side, and this is again something that makes us very unique, our presence in Silicon Valley in the US market is significant. And the fact that we're very focused on very few sectors really help us to build our network. So we always expand our network with potential partners and customers and follow-on financing and all the strategic players and the potential acquirers of our portfolio companies. And we have a very broad network, and we're very good, and this is something that we became excellent throughout the years, is basically providing access to our network to Israeli entrepreneurs in very early stages. So even before we invest in them, and more so after we invest in them. So we meet, the stage that we like to meet entrepreneurs is basically, 3 guys with a PowerPoint presentation. That's where we love meeting entrepreneurs.
So we have focus, we have great bridge to Silicon Valley, actually presence in the Silicon Valley, and the third one will be?
I would say that our Israeli offices are, again, if you look at what makes us special, so the first would be our presence in Silicon Valley and our network and our ability to provide access to this network to Israeli entrepreneurs in their earliest stages. And the second one would be our Israeli office. So we're 13 people in Weil Ventures in total, which is quite a lot for an early stage VC. 3 in the US and 10 in Israel. And the nice thing about our Israeli office is that it's very, very diversified. We have people from different backgrounds, different skills. So we have analysts and marketing team and technological people, and these people, our employees, work for us, and they also work for our portfolio companies. So the term of being a value-add investor is something that it's like one of the highest, highest virtues of Weil Ventures, and all of the Weil Ventures team in the US and in Israel work for our portfolio companies. So. Of course, we are the business development arm of our portfolio companies in their early stages, but we also try to be their PR firm. We can be their recruiters. We are their analysts when they're looking at new markets or competitors. So basically, throughout the years, we grew as an organization, and the main purpose for this was to provide more and more services to our portfolio companies.
Right. So basically, a new startup, 3 guys with a PowerPoint that have a great technology-based startup. When you choose to invest in them, you also give them a lot of services to help them grow right into your networks. So that's also, I think, something very strong. I just read about a day or 2 ago about you just published like a very interesting post about some new backers, or I think you call them
Venture advisors.
Advisors. I was amazed because I never saw that before in VCs. I mean, you really published, I think that was 24 people?
28.
28.
Right, Sharon. 28.
28.
And counting.
And counting. So please explain, what does that mean?
Great. So as mentioned, we're a very focused investor, and let's take cybersecurity as our number one sector. As most of you probably know, cybersecurity is a very crowded space. It's really hard to differentiate between different companies and really identify good investment opportunities. And we always seek market validation before we invest in a company, right? So as I mentioned before, we always provide access to Israeli entrepreneurs to potential customers. And in cybersecurity is our CISOs, Chief Information Security Officers. So we have, throughout the years, we built a network of US-based Chief Information Security Officers from large enterprise companies. And we never invest in a company before we go through a very thorough due diligence process. And one of the main steps, one of the main gates that they have to cross is basically speak with, I would say, between 8 to 12 Chief Information Security Officers from the US and get their feedback. And this is an amazing process for everybody. For the entrepreneurs, it's very rare or close to impossible for 3 guys from Israel to speak with the Chief Information Security Officer of Akamai or SAP or RSA in such an early stage. So they get like the highest degree of market validation and feedback. So that's an amazing process for them. It's great for us because obviously we want to invest in technologies or in products that, some customers put 2 thumbs up saying this is great. This is a great direction. If they're able to develop what they're telling me about, I'll be very interested to use it.
So how do you do that? You take them abroad, or you bring some of them to Israel, or just doing like on a Zoom talk or Skype talk?
So some of these sessions go over Zoom, but in some cases we fly the entrepreneurs to Silicon Valley for face-to-face meetings with some of our venture advisors. So this is the process that we've done throughout the years. And we built very close relationships with those cybersecurity executives, and by now, they know that whenever we pick up the phone and say, there are some interesting people here, they know that we provide them like the best next thing in cybersecurity coming out of Israel. And these are like forward-thinking cybersecurity executives. They love hearing new technologies, providing feedback to entrepreneurs. So it's basically a win-win-win situation for everybody. And the publication that you saw was basically us formalizing this process that we've done throughout many years. It's just now more formal and public.
So this is a very, very interesting step. And I think any entrepreneur in this room or anyone watching this video should listen carefully. Process where you actually meet your prospect customers, probably very early stage, and even if you're not invested in the end, you're going to get some very, very interesting validation and questions about your product.
Yeah, so because these guys, these executives are close to us, so these are not like cold sales pitch. Right. This is more like a friendly brainstorming discussion. How often you get to brainstorm on your product with such high-level executives? And one of the things that we try to identify throughout the process is how entrepreneurs absorb feedback and adapt. Because, you have the first call, it went okay. Some of the things you said were good. You got pushback for others, okay? Right. Or maybe you got some interesting feedback or interesting idea. We want to see progress in the second and third and fourth call. We want to see, obviously being flexible and agile are very important traits for entrepreneurs. And this is something that we pay very close attention to. And basically the startup looks very different before and after this process, because the entrepreneurs got so much feedback and learned a lot. And if their pitch or if the way they think about the problem they're solving is the same before and after, I guess that
how many startups do you meet every year?
So I think the numbers are around 300 companies a year. You know, when I say meet, I mean like either
like just approaching you first meeting, I would say.
I would say either a face-to-face meeting or a phone call or not just an email. I would say around 300.
So the funnel starts with 300, and then
it's more than that, but it's
probably but 300 basically you meet or speak with, and then how many of these actually pass the first filtering, like by the Israeli team, and you send them, or they're going to meet these CISO in the US?
The number is not very high.
Right.
I would say maybe around less than 10%.
Less than 10%, because I think that YL known for making a very thorough due diligence process, and you don't invest in a lot of companies. Like you invest in few every year. Yeah.
So in the past year, we invested in 4 companies, which was a lot for us. Throughout the years, the average was between 1 to 2 investments a year.
Right. So is this rate is something you're looking to grow, like to invest in more than 2, 3, 4 companies a year, or you want to stay like?
We would love to invest in more companies.
Okay.
I mean, this hasn't been any. This is not the bottleneck. I mean, we just we raised a new fund last year, a $75 million fund. It's our 3rd fund. We want to invest between 8 to 9 companies in this fund. If we can make 8 investments a year, we'll do it. I mean, that's not the issue. The issue is being very thorough, very methodical,
and I think there's also something interesting about your process, because you just raised another $75 million, but you are looking to invest in 8 or so companies. So it's a lot of money for every company, and not all of them going to succeed, right? So
all
it's
of them
not
are
just
going to succeed.
Yes, of course, but it's not just the seed money, right? You're looking afterwards.
Right. So our strategy in general is to lead the seed round, to be a very significant shareholder of our portfolio companies, help them a lot throughout the way, in every way we can, like I described, and with capital. So we always follow on in follow-on rounds. We always put more money in future rounds. It's a very important part of our investment strategy, and you know, when we think about the number of companies we want to invest in, how much capital to allocate to each portfolio company, I mean, we plan for companies that build for the long run. Absolutely.
How many companies do you have today on your portfolio?
So we have 7 active portfolio companies. We invested in 14 companies in total. 6 of them were already successful acquired. One of them not, and the rest are doing extremely well.
So when we say it's important to emphasize 6 were acquired, that's very nice, but the rest, I mean, one was failed, as you said, but the rest are maybe going to grow.
Well, hopefully,
right?
The rest, 4 of them are less than 1 year old.
Oh, right.
And the two other companies that are more mature, one of them already raised $63 million in total. That's Twistlock. And another one, Caramba Security, raised $17 million. So they're doing extremely well, and we hope that they will become very big companies in
And you're
the
looking
future.
for them to grow.
Absolutely.
Not for early exit, like, in the next year or so.
No, these are great companies. Twistlock in the cloud-native security world, and Caramba in the automotive security space. These are very hot spaces. These 2 companies, enjoy great traction with customers, and we just want to build very big companies.
So you spoke about 3 technologies. What kind of companies are you looking for? Early stage, 3 technologies that you mentioned. Do you have like any more factors which kind of entrepreneurs are you looking for?
So, in terms of our investment criteria, so we invest in B2B, deep technology software companies. That's been our motto throughout the years. Now in cybersecurity, mostly. In terms of teams, I would say that we're looking for teams with domain expertise. I mean, that's one of the key things that we're looking for. I mean, I would say that it's almost impossible to found a successful cybersecurity company if you don't know anything about cybersecurity. Same goes for other sectors. I mean, we're looking for deep domain expertise, either technological or from the business side. And that's maybe another point that I would mention. We always like to see well-rounded teams. It's true that we invest in very technological companies, but we can't really invest in a technological team that doesn't have a CEO or any one of the founders, doesn't have the capability of speaking with customer, engaging in sales.
So let me understand. You meet 3 people coming from the technology unit in 8200 or any other one. They are great technology guys, and they have great and interesting startup, but none of them can lead the business. He's not a marketing guy. He's not a business guy. He doesn't know how to sell. So you would bring someone from the US to manage the company, or you would say, we're skipping this company?
So we'll probably not invest in that kind of teams. But I mean, it's not like, obviously we invested in first-timers,
Yes.
people that haven't been entrepreneurs, people that haven't been CEOs before, but at least they had a potential to do so, right? They were presentable, they knew how to speak, and they knew how to think correctly about the business, not just the technology.
Right.
I think that in cybersecurity and in other fields as well, we like to invest in deep technology. It's a good competitive advantage, and we as a firm feel very confident and comfortable when we know that our portfolio company develops the best technology. But at the end of the day, if you want to build a very big company, differentiated technology takes you so far. I mean,
Right.
after the first period of life of your company, it doesn't really matter. I mean, a good technology will bring you to a good company, maybe a nice exit. But if you want to build very large company that will be the market leader in the space, go-to-market and sales strategy are far more important than technology. So we always like to start with differentiated technology, but very soon you understand that the company that's going to lead the market will be the one that will engage with customers better or reach customers
Right.
in a very good
So
way.
what will be the optimal team for you to invest in?
I would say it's a very hard question. If you look at our portfolio, you see very different teams. So we invested in, people that just got released from the army, like 20-something years old. This is the first job, right? And we invested in teams that I would say that like the average age of the founders would be 50-something.
Right.
So this is a very broad range, and these are very different teams, and we know how to work with each one. And each team has different advantages, but also things that they struggle with.
But you feel more confident with, I would say, experienced entrepreneurs. Now, and it doesn't matter if it's like the second timers or so, but more experienced people, right?
So I would say that in order to build a good company or to build a successful startup means that you've done less mistakes than your competitors. I would say you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and I think it's good to have experienced investors that could save you some of the mistakes. And if you're experienced, then you probably did a lot of mistakes before, so you can evade those and move forward quickly. But if you're young but you're not cocky, and you know what you're good at, but you know what you're not as good at, and you're open to feedback, and you surround yourself with great advisors and with great with smart people that complement your qualities, you'll do less mistakes and you'll move forward quickly and you'll succeed.
Let's hear about a success story you can share with us, like the one that you are most proud of.
Okay. Yeah, I can share the story of fire layers. It's a very, this story is close to my heart because this was the first investment of Wild Ventures since I became a partner. So we found we found Yair and Doron, the founders of Fire Layers, way before our competitors, way before other VCs, and they were serial entrepreneurs.
How did you find them? Early. How did you find them?
I found them on LinkedIn.
But you just searched for interesting people on LinkedIn and you found them?
Yeah, I did that once. Yeah.
Wow.
And I was lucky. I was lucky. I found Yair and Doron working on new startup under stealth. I just approached them, say, hey guys, what are you working on? And they didn't really want to talk with us because it was too early. I mean, they haven't even thought about raising capital. They just, started thinking about their next big thing. But we knew that they are extremely strong entrepreneurs, and we didn't want to wait for other VCs to start talking with them. So we really pushed, and they said, okay, we'll meet you. Okay, just for a casual coffee. We're not raising any capital, just to get to know each other. And Yoav and I met Yair and Doron in our office, and 48 hours later, we signed a term sheet.
Wow, that's so fast.
Yeah.
How come?
They amazed us. I mean, I think it was one of those meetings that after 15 or 20 minutes, it was obvious that we want to invest in them.
So how on average, how much time does it take for you to give a term sheet for a startup?
I would say a couple of weeks, but we can do it even faster if you must do.
Couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, throughout the entire due diligence process. Yeah.
I will take in a minute or so. I will take questions from you. So if you have some question for Ofer, just get ready, and I'll give you a shot after the next question. So we spoke about fire layers, and that's a good success story. Look at the TV. Look at the plasma. Look, it's not falling. It's okay.
Yeah, so we invested in Fire Layers back in 2013, and they got acquired by Proofpoint 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
And do you have also a failure story that you feel like you missed a very interesting startup?
Yeah, so many of those.
So many. Like an interesting one?
Yeah, we always tell the story of Adalom, which is a very known company, and everybody knows. They're actually competitors. They were competitors to Fire Layers. They worked in the same space.
They were acquired by Microsoft?
That's correct. Yeah. So when we met the three founders of Adalom, that was in 2013, maybe even 2012. Let's say 2013. I don't know if you know them, but these are three super technological and smart guys, relatively young.
Yeah.
Okay. And when we met them, they were thinking about a solution to a different problem than what Adalom actually did. And we didn't really like the solution. And we basically told them something like, if you ever do something else, we'd love to speak with you and find other ways to work together.
If you change if you change your product or something, we'll speak with you again. And they did change the product afterwards,
but
right?
it was too late for us.
Too late.
Yeah. And that was a very we had a realization after that incident, because we understood that the most important factor of a startup is the team.
Right.
Okay, and if we were lucky to identify a very strong team doing something in the space that we're interested in, we should really work harder and find a way to work with them.
Right. That's most of the people I get to interview here say that the team is the most important factor. Like first the team, second the product, and then the market. This is usually like three factors.
I would say the market first.
Market first.
I'll try to be contrarian. I would say the market is the most important thing.
Right.
The market is the most important thing for an investor to look at, only because one reason is you can't really control the market.
Mm-hmm.
All the other factors, like the product is like the easiest thing that you can change.
I know some founders you cannot control also. That's also
so
a
I
problem.
started with the product as the easiest thing that you can
Right.
you can change. Team, obviously, you can change. It's not the best thing to do. Usually, if the team changes, the likelihood of failure is increasing dramatically, but it is changeable. Okay, market dynamics you can't really control. If the market is going down, if the team is operating in a market that nobody's interested in, you won't interest follow-on investors. You won't be interesting to customers, and you won't be interesting to potential acquirers. So, I would say that if you identify a good market, you should find. I mean, that's the first thing.
Right. Anyone want to ask some questions? Yes.
You're talking about our venture advisors program? Yeah, so what's the incentive of our venture advisors to work with us, correct? Yes. So I would say there are a few things. The first and the most trivial one is that they get very small equity out of our success. So that's like a small thing. But I don't think that they're doing it for that. Most of them are like really high caliber executives. They've made a lot of money on their own. I think that what they're mostly interested in is having the access to innovation coming out of Israel. Like really to know what are the next big thing, what is the cutting edge technology coming out of Israel. They're looking for advisory and mentorship opportunities to work with startups and also to help their organizations that they're working in. I think this is the most important incentive for them. And we see it. All of the people in our venture, all of our venture advisors have this quality. Yeah.
More questions? Yes, from the back. So, Igor, we had two questions, right? The first one was, what's the success statistics of YL Ventures? And the second one is why yours is so high, and in the common statistics speak about 2 or 3% success for early stage.
Yeah. So let's talk about the statistics of YL Ventures. I think that we can put aside the portfolio companies of our third fund because they're less than 1 year old. Obviously, all of them will be amazing companies, but so far it's a bit early. So let's talk about our previous companies. So we invested in 10 companies out of our previous 2 funds. So as mentioned, 6 of them were already successfully acquired. 1 of them was erased. And 3 are progressing very well, and at least some of them will be even bigger than all the rest. So I would say that our success rate is very high. It's
Much more.
it
speaks
it
about-
will be 90% in our in our 2 funds, in our previous 2 funds. It will be 90%. Thank you. Our hit rate is very high, and I can attribute it to our focus and to our process and our selectivity and to the way that we work with our portfolio companies.
So they select 1 or 2 companies, only 1 or 2 companies every year. So they really focus on these companies, right? You can understand.
So we're yeah, in average years, we look at 300 companies and invest in 1, okay? And this is a very tight process, and we would really like to invest in more. I mean, that's not like we need to invest in 1. But the fact that we're very focused on very specific sectors, so we build our own expertise in all the different areas that we can, pre-investment and post-investment. So we have the due diligence process, a very rigorous due diligence process that not a lot of early stage investors go through. I mean, we spend a lot of time and effort diligencing investment opportunities. We talk with a lot of customers. We do a lot of internal research. We diligence the entrepreneurs themselves personally. We talk to a lot of people that worked with them in the past and so on. So we check every angle of the company. And most of the companies, we decide not to invest in after that process. And after we invest, we have all these different activities and processes that help to accelerate the growth of our portfolio companies. It's our business development activities, it's all this network that we are providing, it's all those value-added services like marketing, recruiting, intelligence, and so on. So this is how we operate. And
I think when you invest in 1 company, you don't have the privilege to fail, right?
That's how we look at it. You know, a lot of investors, a lot of VCs have this portfolio point of view. So we'll invest in 10 companies, and we know that 6 of them will fail, 2 of them will be all right, and 2 or 3 might return their entire fund. Okay, that's like the basic mathematics of venture capital. Well, that's not how we look at things. We look at things more from the entrepreneur's point of view. I talked about it earlier, how entrepreneurs are laser focused on one thing, and investors have a broader point of view. So we do have broad point of view, but we do work with our entrepreneurs very closely, and we will not let any portfolio company fail. That's how we look at things, and we back them financially, and our entire team works with them and helps them to succeed. So that's a different mentality.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, how much strategic capital that we raise from LPs, from our investors, right? So honestly, most of our LPs are not cybersecurity focused. Some of them are, and we use them, and we leverage their network and their expertise. But we surround ourselves with cybersecurity experts like our venture advisors and all the network we have in the US and Israel. So it doesn't come necessarily from our investors, but from our broad network.
Okay, more questions to come in a few minutes. Major challenge today. From your point of view, what are the major challenges today for startups?
For startups?
Yes.
Well, for For cybersecurity startups, it's okay.
Maybe.
To get attention from customers, to get attention from the market. I guess that it's not only a cybersecurity problem, but every crowded space has this problem. We see a lot of innovation, a lot of technology coming out of Israel, great technological entrepreneurs that are solving real problems. But guess what? CISOs have 500 problems, right? You can't get their attention if you're trying to solve their 346 problem. You need to really focus on like top 5 problems, like huge problems, and develop products that will be differentiated enough from all your competitors, and it's really hard.
Okay, that's interesting. And for early stage startups, one of the things you're probably looking at is their business plan. And I had the privilege of speaking to many of them about their business plan and trying to understand how the hell are they building this projective of income or income projective. What are your thoughts about business plan? Should early stage startup build their business plan, and what should they consider within this business plan?
So absolutely, you should definitely build a business plan. It should be solid and robust, and it must make sense. A lot of entrepreneurs generate those Excel spreadsheets and say, hey, well, these are just Excel spreadsheets. I mean, if the investor wants to see $10 million revenues in the next couple of years, we'll put you $10 million. You want $5 million, we'll put there $5 million, whatever you'd like. I think that's a very big mistake. And I would tell you how we look at business models in those financial projections. Basically, that's another way for us to diligence entrepreneurs.
So it's very interesting because we speak a lot about due diligence. I don't think we usually speak a lot about due diligence process. And you spoke about market validation. You spoke also about validating the team themselves. I don't know if everybody understood, but you're really doing kind of background check about the team.
Absolutely. We're going to invest, let's say, $3 million right now and probably $7 or $8 million throughout the life of the company in 3 guys that we met a few weeks ago. Of course, we're going to reference them. We're going to speak with their colleagues, with their boss, with everybody.
So when these guys are approaching you, you asking for reference?
No.
No. That's a good question. So that means that you should know that during this due diligence, they're going to speak with your boss, probably, with your colleagues, with maybe your
commander in the army, people who worked under you.
Because I was asking you the question, so maybe I'm working in a corporate right now, and like most of the other people, I'm building my own startup in the garage, and you're gonna I don't give you the name or anything of my reference or my boss, and you're gonna approach and ask them about me, and that can make an issue.
So of course we're very sensitive. I mean, if entrepreneurs are still working in their current position, obviously we're not going to do any reference checks without validating that with them, obviously. Usually we're just going to tell them that, okay, we're going to make a few reference calls about you and making sure that you're okay. There's a funny anecdote. One of the entrepreneurs that we invested in, we did a lot of reference calls about him because, I mean, we really wanted to know the guy and
how many is a lot? I'm trying to figure, is it like 3, 4 or like 20?
More than
it's like the
3,
Shabak
4,
when he's
less than 20. I would say maybe 6 or 7.
Wow.
And we were going through in the diligence process, and things were going very well. And I called him just to ask him something about the term sheet and so on. And he was surprised. He told me, I can't believe you called that guy that I worked with, like 10 years ago. How did you reach him? And I was joking with him, and I told him, we spoke with everybody except for your wife. And then he told me, you know what, wait 1 second. And he put his wife on the phone. So we even spoke with his wife. So that was the first time that I spoke with an entrepreneur's wife.
Did you invest in them?
Yeah.
Okay.
She gave a mediocre reference.
Okay.
My question is about cybersecurity. What challenges are we, personally, like people, facing
You mean what kind of challenges we as human beings are challenging?
Cybersecurity, what are the main challenges we are facing today?
Yeah.
And what are the main, perhaps, the main five problems you're facing?
So, usually we invest in security solution for enterprises, not necessarily for consumers, but it does relate to consumers as well. I think that, obviously by now, many organizations have a lot of data on consumers, on their customers. And in many cases, hackers are interested to get this data, this personal data. What's your name? What's your social security number? If we're talking about the healthcare organizations, your medical records, and so on. This is like the most lucrative data that hackers are looking for, because they're able to leverage it to financial gains, like with they launch after that scams and identity theft and so on. So these are the main security challenges that enterprise is facing, and from vendors' point of view, from startups, these are the kind of problems that we're trying to solve. So as organizations become more and more connected, okay, they're moving to the cloud. Employees are working from home, using mobile phones, and so on. Got a lot of IoT devices that gather a lot of data.
And a lot of new regulation, of course.
Yeah.
That helps.
Yeah, so that leads to the organizations that have all of our personal data are much more exposed these days. Okay, so this is the main challenge that affects consumers or like regular people at the end of the day. Whenever you see like those big breaches that you read about in the newspapers, like hackers stole 200 million records of people, right? These are the big sorry, ransomware. Ransomware is another issue. I don't think it's very severe. It affects a lot of people, small, medium businesses, and even large organizations. But I don't consider it a very big challenge these days.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Back to the PC model, what do you think about the boundary have like the edge or the EIR model in Aleph?
So what do I think about incubators, like Teammate or EIR programs? It's a very interesting question. These are great models. Some of them are still not proven to be successful. But we also have an EIR program as well. We have a few entrepreneurs working in our offices, thinking about ideas. There are some inherent challenges in finding the right structure to fund these companies as they incubate. We have a lot of fun with the EIR program. We learn a lot. We work on a daily basis with great entrepreneurs, even way before we invest in them. But it's very different from the traditional VC model. I can't really say more than that. I think that these are interesting models, and in many cases they don't work. With EIR, it's hard. It's hard to generate great companies in EIR programs. There are some inherent challenges, and also with Teammate. They have great companies, but we'll see. Still early.
Yes, Safi, one more question.
Can you please summarize three criteria Ofer finance-wise that may reflect on the potential growth of cybersecurity venture?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
If you can summarize some kind of three criteria when you are evaluating
What do you mean corporate finance-wise?
I mean, some kind of project, some kind of future growth, regarding
Okay.
well, the lack of a track record of growth at the early stages.
So
Yeah.
this is a finance question.
Yeah, what kind of like some criteria, like financial criteria that we evaluate when we meet or diligence startups, cybersecurity startups. So I think there are two different scenarios. Obviously, we invest in seed stage, so basically we have nothing. In many companies that we invested in haven't even incorporated yet. I mean, they are incorporating throughout our process because we need to send $4 million somewhere, and they need to have a bank account. So we can't really diligence them on the corporate structure. But we do a lot of market research. So let's take, for example...
I think the first factor is the market size, right?
Right. Market size and future trends. So that's where let's divide the answer to two. So some companies operate in like well-defined markets. Okay, so let's say let's take our most recent investment in cybersecurity, Vulcan Cyber, providing a platform for vulnerability remediation. Okay, so the vulnerability management world or market it's an existing market. Okay, you can read the reports like Gartner reports, and many people talk about it, and you can reach like concrete numbers of what's the market size, what are the future growth, and so on. Okay, so that's like relatively easy. Mm-hmm. In many cases, we invest in startups that basically invent new markets. Okay, so when we invested in Twistlock, okay, a company that secures virtual containers, the market size for security products for virtual containers when we invested in Twistlock was 0. Okay, there was no market for securing virtual containers. So how do you do market sizing for that? Okay, so in that case, we're trying to learn about the trends. Okay, the two questions that we asked ourselves are, what's the state of virtual containers? Or is this technology actually going to be adopted? Is it going to be adopted by large enterprises? And whether large enterprises will be concerned from security?
Yes, and yes.
Yes, and yes, very much earlier than we expected.
Wow, very fast.
And that's why Twistlock is leading this category and doing extremely well. So this is the say art of early stage investment. I mean, you don't have all the numbers. It's very different than investing in mature companies when you have track record. You can project growth. You can speak with customers and so on. There are a lot of guesswork and projections, and that's what makes it so interesting.
Do you have I think it's called multiple machpil that you're working with, like that common known, something you can share? Like, would it be, I don't know, what the figures for that?
I mean, we don't spend a lot of time on financial projections at this stage. But getting back to the business model question, we do put a lot of effort of analyzing those nice Excel spreadsheets that you send us.
Yes.
In a way, we try to understand how you, as the CEO of the company, how are you thinking about your business? How do you project the growth of your company? When do you expect to get revenues out of your product?
But when they're asking for $2 million fund, right, very, very early stage, and they are evaluating themselves for $10 million company, so that would be 5x or so. I mean, or maybe more because it's about the profit.
So these are two different questions. The first question is, why do you want to raise $2 million and not 3 or 4 or 500K?
Right.
And the second question is, how do you determine valuation?
Yeah.
Right? So the first question is easier. And basically the way that we think about it is this. Whenever you raise seed capital, basically you have a clock that starts ticking, and whenever you run out of money, you're dead, right? Our money, in that case, you're dead. So the first question that you want to ask yourself is, when can we raise the A round? Okay? And when you answer that, you get to ask yourself, okay, so what would it take for the company to raise a healthy A round? We want to raise significant amount of capital from great investors in great valuation. Okay? So you ask yourself that, and then you get the answer. Let's say you need to have 5 paying customers in the US and great market traction and a mature product. Okay? Great. So let's work ourselves backwards and see what do we need in order to get that in a reasonable amount of time, let's say 18 to 24 months. We need so-and-so developers, so-and-so marketing people, salesmen, whatever. What's the sales cycle? How much would it take for me to engage with customers, and so on? So these are the things that we try to understand when we look at those financial projections. We try to understand how thorough have you been in basically running your own company. And from there, we figure out the number that needs to be raised right now in order to reach there in
Healthy A round.
a healthy A round.
Yeah,
That's our goal.
That's great answer. And about the valuation of the company. So very, very early stage, how do they evaluate themselves?
So I guess there are many factors. None of them is very mathematical. At the end of the day, you factor many things like what are the comparable deals that are around these days, the strength of the team, how hot is the market, and basically there's a negotiation of how much the founders are willing to get diluted, right? That's basically it. To say, you can say that in every round the founders will get diluted, let's say between 20 to 30%, give or take. So you want to raise as much. I mean, you would raise $4 million and get diluted by the same amount that if you would have raised $2 million.
Right. Okay. So before we end the interview, I have these yes/no questions. So it's like on TV. I'm going to ask you very fast questions, and you're going to answer yes, no, or something else. But try to do it fast. So team or single entrepreneur?
Team.
Crowdfunding, yes or no?
No.
Co-working spaces, yes?
Yes.
Or no? Exit fast or grow?
Grow.
China or the US?
US.
Oh, that's for sure. Patent, yes or no?
Yes. Very important.
And so how early in the process you want to see the founders going for patent? Would it be like very early?
Quite early. Quite early. You need to raise capital for that, but yes, it's important, both defensively and offensively.
Go to market globally or locally? Locally means in Israel. To start in Israel, validate the product.
Locally in the US.
Locally in the US. Okay, that's your locally. iOS or Android?
Android.
Vanilla or chocolate?
Vanilla.
Silicon Valley or New York City?
Silicon Valley.
Blockchain, yes or no?
No.
I knew that. Last question is a Peter Pan question. So Peter, so you're very, very young. I mean, I interviewed here some people like maybe twice times a year, but 35
years old.
Yeah, you're very young. And the Peter Pan question is, what would you want to do when you grow up? So you still have time to think about that, but like, what's your vision for you when you will grow up?
I hate to be a cliche, but I love what I'm doing right now, and I guess when I grow up, I would like to still be a partner in Wild Ventures, and I would like to grow Wild Ventures to be like the most dominant fund in Israel and maybe beyond. That's what I would like to do when I grow up.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ofer.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.